It's April 26th, 2014. Game 3 of the NBA playoffs between the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs. The series is tied 1-1, and with the Spurs coming in as the favorites to win the championship, it's a pivotal moment if the Mavericks want to keep their playoff hopes alive. But hold on, how did we get here? And I don't mean how did the Mavs and Spurs meet in the playoffs. How did we get to the point where thousands of people are holding their breath to see if a guy can put a ball in a hoop? How did we get to the point where this game has become an important part of American culture? To explain this and to see why basketball has had such a large impact on American lifestyle, let's rewind.
It's 1891. There were many important things going on during this time period, which was coined the Gilded Age by Mark Twain, as, superficially, it appeared to be America's highest point, when in reality it was anything but that.
To help explain this concept a little better, I've invited some experts on the time period. Ken, Ethan, thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Alright, so can you guys explain a little bit more about the context of this time period?
Of course, there's so many scientific breakthroughs during this time. Wilhelm Röntgen and the discovery of the X-ray, which allowed us to see inside the human body. Then there's Albert Einstein and his discovery of the theory of relativity, among other theories. Then lastly, there was Niels Bohr, who developed the Bohr's model in 1931, which revealed the structure of the atom.
Okay, so another thing that characterizes this era is this newfound American capitalism. And this was actually caused by the Second Industrial Revolution. So you've got guys like Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history, who paved the way for the steel industry. And I think guys like Andrew Carnegie really summarize the Gilded Age well. So I actually have a quote from a famous biography of him by David Nassau, and it reads, "Carnegie survived and triumphed in an environment rife with cronyism and corruption. Much of the capital invested in his iron and steel companies was derived from business activities that might be today, but were not at the time regarded as moral." And I think this really summarizes the Gilded Age well. This age was coined the Gilded Age by Mark Twain, where he tried to convey how the period was glittering on the surface, but corrupt underneath. Carnegie embodies Mark Twain's idea of this age, where on the outside, Carnegie just seems as like your everyday multi-billionaire, but if you did some digging, you'd find out that he was really just a corrupt businessman.
Alright, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we know that this time period wasn't the greatest in American history. However, some good things did come out of it. The standard of living increased and new colleges were created under the Morrill Land Act of 1862, such as Texas A&M and MIT. As fate would have it, just 87 miles away from MIT at nearby Springfield College was where the sport of basketball was born.
It is now December of 1891. James Naismith, a member of the YMCA in Springfield, Massachusetts, has just been assigned to design a game that is safe and can be played indoors. He ends up coming up with a no-tackle game where players advance the ball by passing it. Points are scored by throwing the ball into a goal. On a chilly Monday afternoon, Naismith nails 2 peach baskets 10 feet above the ground on either side of the YMCA gym, as well as a list of 13 typed out rules. 2 teams of 9 men were assembled and Naismith tossed the ball into the air. The game of basketball soon took off. International students came to watch the games, and when they went home for the holidays, they spread the word about the game. Later, many leagues popped up. The game was growing in popularity around the US. Some things stayed the same as the game's influence expanded. A universal 5-person per team was widely kept, and the height of 10 feet was maintained for the basket. However, some things changed. Mainly, the inclusion of African Americans was fueled by the sport. By 1910, Howard College, founded under the First Congregational Society, had its own varsity basketball team. The next half-century was filled with many changes. There were many new innovative changes in shoes, attire, and other equipment, as well as changes in the rules. Basketball was added as an Olympic sport in 1936, and the NBA was officially created in 1946. With the addition of the three-point line in 1979, it seemed as if the rules of the game had stabilized. Basketball was no longer the dream child of a 30-year-old athletic student in Massachusetts. It had truly become a sport. We are back to the game. With 1.7 seconds left, it seems like anything but a made shot will be heartbreaking to the thousands of Mavericks fans in attendance. But pause. Why is this moment so impactful to these fans? It's just a game, which in the grand scheme of things means nothing.
To show why this game means the world to these people, I've brought in Mason Carbajal, who has done a case study on the Brooklyn Nets' Mirza Teletovic to explain an example on why this game, to some, is so impactful.
Thank you, Justin. Mirza Teletovic has truly felt the impact of the game of basketball. Growing up in the Balkans right after the fall of the Soviet Union, it was an extremely tense time. Reading a quote from him from the TV series The Association, Brooklyn Nets, it reads, "I used to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to the basketball court.
I wouldn't come home like to 11, 12 o'clock in the night. Man, you know how the situation was. In that time, you don't even have shoes. The basketball court is like 300 meters from my house, and all my friends with me are playing, and then you just hear the sirens, like the grenade start falling down, and you just run to your house and hide. If I have to die, I die. For basketball, I do anything.
To me, it's just amazing how as a young boy, Mirza had to overcome not simply the teenage struggles of homework and social life, but just surviving. And the fact that he found an escape through basketball is just unbelievable. Basketball has truly shaped Mirza's life. It gave him a comfort that nothing else could provide, and ultimately led him getting out of a war zone in his homeland and starting a new life in the US.
And what I found is that it wasn't just NBA players that were impacted. Every day, thousands take part in games of pickup and one-on-one. They may not be escaping war, but basketball for many is an escape from an abusive household, the stresses of life, or any other burdens one may carry. But finally, back to the Mavericks game. The inbounder is Jose Calderon.
He tries to pass it to Monte Ellis or Dirk Nowitzki.
Two players who have proven to be clutch in the playoffs and are go-to options to shoot a game-winning three-pointer. However, the Spurs seem to know this and are guarding them heavily. The only other options are Brandon Wright, who hasn't shot a three-pointer in his career, and 38-year-old Vince Carter, the high school and college standout who has carved out a successful career with the Raptors and Nets. However, clearly his age has gotten the best of him, as after being bounced around the league, he landed into the hands of the Mavs.
Now, Vince Carter may have once been and still be a deadly three-point shooter, but his age isn't the only thing that will get in the way of making this a routine corner three-point shot. Let's take a closer look at what it will take to make this. Vince Carter is 6'6", and with a massive standing vertical of 43 inches, this should be no problem to get the shot off. However, the player guarding him is Manu Ginobili, who is also 6'6" and has a 35-inch vertical. Plus, Vince Carter does not get the chance to run up into his jump as he does during one of his dunks. He has to catch the ball and shoot. Vince doesn't get the highest jump, but is able to get the shot off over Ginobili. But how accurate does Vince need to be? Well, assuming a 20-mile-per-hour initial velocity, which is roughly 8.94 meters per second, Vince needs to release the ball at 61.25 degrees to get the ball in the hoop. However, if he is off just by 1.25 degrees either vertically or horizontally, the shot will not go in, likely hitting the rim long or short. To put that into perspective, looking on a globe, that 1.25 degree distance is the length between MIT and Springfield College, roughly 87 miles apart. So for Vince Carter to sink this shot, it would take leaping over one of the greatest defenders of this decade and releasing a shot at exactly 61.25 degrees with a margin of error at around 1 degree, all in the span of less than a second.
Which, even for a normal all-star shooter like Stephen Curry, would be difficult to pull off. But this is a 38-year-old Vince Carter, who is way past his prime years. Making the shot would mean so much for an organization which has played its part in making basketball one of the most impactful sports in America. This sport began when America was seemingly at its best, when it was actually at its worst, the Gilded Age, and has become now an iconic part of American culture and the backbone in the lives of millions of fans. Now, all viewers, supporters, and participants of the sport all rest their eyes on a 38-year-old athlete who is on the cusp of expiration. If he makes the shot, thousands of basketball fans rejoice, their days brightened up, and basketball continues on its journey to impact our society. If he doesn't, the day for these spectators is ruined. Welcome to a moment in basketball history.
What kind of look is it going to be? It comes into the corner for the win. Yes! Yes! Do you believe it? Vince Carter gets it done